Hi, I'm Will Johnson and welcome to my channel. This is an introduction video to a video series where we are going to look at the systems and processes that allow us to move. What we will call the movement system, but it's involved with many other systems. Our ability to move affects so many parts of our lives and our health and our development and well-being across our lifespan. And so understanding it may help us to avoid the pitfalls and help us to have a better quality of life. And that's what we're hoping to find through the series. To clarify, yes, exercise is moving our body, but this is not necessarily a series about exercise. Movement is more of a fundamental idea. We are talking about why we move, its effects within the body, and how we accomplish it. We will cover fitness and exercise, of course, but it's from this perspective of movement. And hopefully when we get there, it'll be quite helpful. Now, let's start with sort of an illustration. If babies came with boxes and packaging like the products that we make, and they would have a little manual or getting started guide. And in that manual, it would have in the warning section, must move regularly to operate properly. Subsequent pages would also include many movement-related recommendations and warnings. We hope that in some small way that this series will provide a variety of recommendations and warnings that can be useful for you in this way. But we're going to try to make them accessible and understanding and entertaining. In this video so far, we're just going to talk about why movement is important and a little quick introduction into the movement system and what makes it up. So, why is movement important? Well, you really notice why movement is so important when you're watching a movie and your hero is being stalked by a hungry tiger or something like that, and the hero is tied up and they can't move, right? It's obvious. Movement helps us survive. And it helps us to move away from bad things that might harm or kill us and towards good things that'll feed or help us. And so we are designed to move. And we're designed by movement. Think of it, as we're designed for movement, our bodies are designed to move in these ways we've talked about, but we're also shaped by movement. In fact, it shapes us over the millennia and centuries. It shapes us physically, mentally, and even socially. Let's talk about some conditions. Some of the top killers, like heart disease, are called lifestyle related. Diet and exercise are the recommendations. Low back pain is one of the most costly disabilities. Falls and accidents, which can sometimes be a movement failure, you could say, account for many deaths and disabilities. Balance disorders, post-concussion syndrome can affect movement, of course. It affects this movement system. And anxiety and depression are often successfully treated with exercise. And of course, the famous Parkinson's disease, which some of us know about, is in a family of conditions called movement disorders. These conditions, and many other lines of scientific investigation, are going to give us insight into how that movement system works. And it's telling us that movement is not as easy as we think. It's not easy. We actually take it for granted. It is fraught with problems and challenges that we often don't even think of. In fact, we thankfully have been given ingenious little solutions that we've inherited as reflexes, as instincts, and subconscious processes. This is often why we don't notice how difficult it is. And though these solutions are tried and tested over the millennia, and they are marvelous, they are not without their faults. In this video series, we will seek to understand movement conditions and the movement system itself. And in so doing, we will see how it affects our physical and mental well-being. We will pull threads from anatomy, physiology, neuroscience, and more, and we will weave them back together into a three-dimensional picture of what it means to be human. So, for the rest of this video, we're going to talk about that movement system, and we'll get some introductions about what makes it up out of the way. All right, so first, our probably most obvious, muscles. Everybody knows about muscles. Muscles contract and pull and create movement. And together, they're called the movement system. And of course, muscles don't work by themselves, do they? They work with bones. We all know about bones. Bones are tough, they're strong, they provide structure and protection to the body. This is the skeletal system. And because they work together so much, we often combine them into the musculoskeletal system. But bones just provide something solid. It's the joints between the bones where the magic or the movement happens. And this is no small distinction. The type of joint and the supporting structures will characterize the movement that joint provides. Different joints, different movement. The study of joints and their possibilities and limits is called biomechanics, and it's a rich subject all on its own. Now, what else do we need for movement? We're probably going to need oxygen, so lungs, right? And a digestive system to give fuel so that the oxygen gets to the muscles and the fuel gets to the muscles. But we also need something to deliver them, so we need a cardiovascular system, the heart and the vessels, to pump all of that around. And for that energy within the cells, we need hormones to kind of make sure that it's all properly regulated up and down, through the system. So far, what do we have? Traditionally, we have about 11 systems that we think of when we're talking about the human body. But at the moment, we've already included 6. We got the muscle system, the skeletal system, the pulmonary system, the digestive system, that cardiovascular system, and the endocrine system. 6, all easily tied to movement. What else is there? We got the immune system, which, if we're moving around and we scratch ourselves, we don't want to, die from infection, so that's important. The urinary system maintains our fluids and electrolytes, and sometimes those fluids and electrolytes can be affected by the skin system, which is next, and so that's really important as we exercise and such, and for that blood pressure to be able to move that fuel around and such. And then we have the reproductive system. Now, we all know about the reproductive system, and sometimes we're doing dancing or moving or something like that to impress one another, and sometimes we're actually doing the reproductive act itself, and so very, very much involved with the movement system. Okay, so that's 10, and I've said there's 11, and I've left somebody out. It's a mysterious system. In fact, some of us just stop with the bones and the muscles and maybe just the cardiovascular system. We often neglect the elephant in the room, and I hope you know who I'm talking about. I'm pausing here because it's critical. And I kind of want to show the absurdity of it. Focusing on just the muscles and the ligaments and the bones, breathing and even pumping the blood, is like saying that a room full of instruments is Beethoven's Fifth Symphony, or jazz and blues, or your favorite song, whatever you like to dance to. But a room full of unplayed instruments is as silent as an empty room. Yes, to make music requires instruments, but it also requires so much more. We need to tune those instruments. We need to make sure they're all in the right volume so one isn't dominating another. And we need to make them properly sort of responsive. We need someone or something to play them or to activate them. And we need to unify them and have some, in a way that we could have some playing rhythm, some playing the melody, some playing the harmony, that sort of stuff. And these different parts will come together and combine into a song or a pattern. And now we have one song, which is great. And that's okay, but we probably need lots of songs. If we're going to take this band on the road, the Blues Brothers would be really upset with us if we didn't have a variety of songs to play with to adapt to whatever the crowd was needing, okay? And the nervous system is just like this. It tunes the muscles. It tunes the glands and other parts of the body. It synchronizes their use into groups and as a whole. And it combines these patterns. It learns these patterns like pieces of music. And it deploys them in patterns that coordinate us. And not only that, but it coordinates all the other systems as well, like the cardiovascular system, even the endocrine system, etc. And so, it's the master system. So how could we forget or neglect it? Now, I'm not saying everybody does, but there's a propensity to, we'll say. There's a tendency for us to neglect it or not talk about it directly. Well, in part, it's historical. The progress, this is my opinion, of course, the progress of science is such that we tackle problems that we can manage, and only recently have we had the technology to peer into the mysteries of the brain. And it is hard to prove and compare and take apart something so complex and interrelated as the brain is. The second reason is kind of like it. It's that the nervous system is traditionally hard to understand or to study, and many put it in the too hard basket. So they just neglect it. Or they use a oversimplified model that eventually after time bears little resemblance to how the nervous system actually works. Okay, and the last reason is, heck, we're scientists, or scientists and clinicians and other professionals are all humans too. And so we can sometimes be a little stubborn, and it can take a little bit of time to change our minds. But this is normal. This is the normal progress of science, and that's okay. But the times are changing, and it's an exciting time because the discoveries are coming thick and fast, and the pieces are starting to fit together. And there's a growing consensus that, let's say it in a funny way, trees don't need brains. Which, of course, is a quirky way of saying that the purpose of having a brain, it seems, through the entire animal kingdom is, you guessed it, movement. And if that's the case, what a great way to understand ourselves from. We're going to combine all of these systems with the nervous system as the master system to understand movement and how it relates to us. We won't be able to make it simple because it just isn't. We'll try to make it understandable, accessible, meaningful, and a little bit of fun. So, join us on a journey of discovery as we go under the hood.